Hello and welcome back to another episode of Diablo to D&D. My name is David, and today we're going to be going over the Druid's Wereform and Cyclone Armor and Lycanthropy. But first, of course, is the campaign update. As you can see here, they finally completed, they found the Arcane Sanctuary. It was a ton of fun, and bit of a slog, but a ton of fun running them through the harem and the palace cellar. Man, I threw just enemies at them until they actually discovered where the portal was. But oh my goodness, I did kind of get bored of just this constant rush of enemies near the end. But by the end of it, they found the command center that the demons had set up, and there was some stealth involved and a very, very narrow case of nearly being found. A door gets opened and everybody's hiding behind a table, but they managed to find it and fight off the enemies fairly well. As a kind of a side note to all of this, I did build a new stat block for the enemies. I think it's the baboon demon was the only enemy in the palace cellar that I hadn't completed. I have started doing stat blocks of creatures on my off weeks. So when I'm not releasing a video, during that week, I put in about... I'm trying to be putting in about three stat blocks of creatures in the Act 1 monster stat blocks here and the Act 2 monster stat blocks as well. I may be reworking how I display these because there's quite a few creatures. But, if you're interested in seeing how the monsters get made and what goes into it, go ahead and take a look at those links. But let's get on into the changelog. So, 2 weeks ago, we had a new player join, and he decided to pick up an Amazon and an assassin, and he is already contributing so much. Slow missiles has been improved, allowing you to make a special reaction on each turn. So this is in part pulled from the Cavalier Fighters 18th level feature where they can make an opportunity attack on each turn. Slow missiles originally said you can just use your reaction to impose disadvantage on a ranged attack roll, and instead this one gives it to the Amazon on each turn. And then, of course, you can make an opportunity attack, but only if you haven't used your normal reaction. Next is the Assassin. I closed off a corner case where Finesse Mastery could be used with a ranged weapon attack. The way that it's supposed to be is done with kind of like Sneak Attack. It has to be a finesse weapon, but I think a melee attack. I'm not entirely sure if Sneak Attacks can be used with throwing daggers. Maybe not. I don't know. But anyway, the intent is that you use a melee weapon when you are attacking to get that Finesse Mastery bonus. So now that is done, let's get into the main video. So Wereform is a great ability. I love it. It's a ton of fun, but I'm running into a couple of problems because right here with the werewolf and the werebear as well, your current and maximum hit points increase equal to your level, and then werebear is 3 times your level. The problem with this is you could potentially just, if you go with a different build, you could turn into your wereform and use that as some healing. You're at 1 HP, all you need to do is just turn into the werebear and then back out, and suddenly you have a ton of healing. The druid in Dungeons & Dragons, their wild shape is very similar, but they get, or very similar to the full ability, but they get kind of quote-unquote temporary hit points because of the animal that they turn into. Now, in the new edition of D&D, it is actually temporary hit points. So what I think I could do is for the were form, just make this temporary hit points. You can ignore this right here. That's a potential thing. But yeah, just make this actually into temporary hit points. But the problem with that is that it runs up against Cyclone Armor, because Cyclone Armor gives temporary hit points equal to twice your druid level. So that's actually how this works in Diablo 2. In fact, these are both of these are how they work in Diablo 2. Your maximum hit point increases and you get temporary hit points. However, this is a slightly different balance because it's Dungeons and Dragons, not Diablo. So instead, if I change this, I've already brought this up right here. If I change it to resistance to cold, fire, and lightning, the reason being is because Cyclone Armor in Diablo 2 only works on cold, fire, or lightning damage. So it's a bit more thematically appropriate to have it just be those three resistances, and it would work very nicely with the proposed change to were form. Of course, down here at Lycanthropy, where is it? Right here. Yep, the maximum hit points become twice your druid level for werewolf and 5 times your druid level for the werebear. The only reason why Lycanthropy is brought up here is because it ties into the were form. The rest of these abilities don't really care about that. But there was a consideration right here. If Cyclone Armor becomes resistance and were form gives temporary HP, replace temporary HP with maximum increase. Instead of temporary hit points, it's actual hit points. So you actually can quote unquote heal from it. I don't know. I don't know if I will, but it is something to look at. Something else to consider is how many times you can use were form. Right now, I only have it on twice per long rest. I kind of want to pull more from the D&D Druid and make it twice per short rest because my player is playing a druid and he's not using his were form because it is only twice per long rest. Now, this kind of does encourage him to use his class abilities or his subclass abilities, but you can already use those subclass abilities in your new form. Where is it? Yeah, and use abilities and feats while in this form. So if I change this to, say, twice per short rest and make the temporary hit points disappear when the were form goes away, then that gives the druid a bit more tankiness because you're constantly refreshing those temporary hit points. Now, granted, the question of how many temporary hit points or how many hit points or whatever you get is up for debate. It is up for, balancing, but I think that's for another video or just a changelog thing. As for the Cyclone Armor, because it is only once per long rest. Now, granted, the intent was for here that those temporary hit points last until your long rest. But if it just becomes, 1 minute, do I, you gain resistance for 1 minute. Do I make it X times per long rest or maybe once per short rest or twice per short rest or something like that? Resistance is very, very powerful. Now, granted, some of the races already just get resistance to, like the Tiefling that have resistance to fire. I think the Genasi get resistance to their damage type. Fire, cold. I don't remember what wind gets. I think it might be cold. Or, air Genasi. I think they might get cold. And then the Earth Genasi, I don't think it's bludgeoning, but anyway, this is, you get 3 resistances. And I think that should be limited. It shouldn't be just handed out. It shouldn't be something that you should be able to use all the time. I do note here that the D2 Barbarian's natural resistance, that is their capstone ability, their 19th? I can't remember exactly what it is. It might be their 20th level ability, but they just get resistance to cold, fire, lightning, and poison just permanently. It's always on. But I think that's pretty much everything that I'm going to be talking about. So let me pause this and I'll get back to you when I make the changes. All right, I'm back, and pretty much everything that I said that I would do, I did. Let's see, for the werewolf, it's temporary hit points equal to your druid level. That is something that I did not mention, is that this was originally just your level. I am cutting that down to just your druid level, so it's not as... You're encouraged to go mono class. Now, granted, the intent... This is not balanced around multi-classing, but whatever. Also, you lose the temporary hit points when your wear form ends. That way, I mean, you still keep your form if those temporary hit points are gone, but if you have any left after that 1 minute, then it just disappears. Also, let's see, Werebear, pretty much the same change. Temporary hit points equal to 3 times your druid level. You lose them when the wear form ends, and you can use this ability twice per short rest. So that way, you're able to be that frontline fighter if you need to. You can be that tank, or you can be that damage dealer, and you have an additional option besides just wielding a sword and a shield. As for Cyclone Armor, it is that 1 minute. You gain resistance to cold, fire, and lightning. I thought about making it a choice. You pick one, but I don't know. That doesn't fit nicely with how the mechanic works in Diablo 2. So now this is also just once per short rest. So just for 1 minute, it once per short rest. So this is encouraging you to actually take short rests. As for Lycanthropy, the only thing that really changed was the temporary hit points become twice your druid level for werewolf and 5 times your druid level for werebear. The mechanic didn't really change all that much, just changing your maximum hit points become, just the temporary hit points, just a reference. As of right now, I'm addressing a different issue, but I would like the possibility of maybe shifting between forms. But, not for right now. I think I'll address that either in a later video or just in a changelog thing. But that's pretty much it. I like this change, but I don't know how much I like this change. The class abilities mesh better because you don't have competing hit point maximum temporary hit point questions, and it's giving the druid the ability to use their abilities more often. I mean, this is your level 1 ability. You want to be able to be using this for the rest of your campaign, your career as a druid. I don't think there's much else that I would change. This kind of it kind of feels like a puzzle piece just locking into place a little bit, like a tumbler in a lock, just ticking over right into how it fits nicely. Cyclone Armor doesn't feel as good, but I mean that's kind of what playtesting is for, is to see what works and what doesn't. But I think I'm just going to end it there. You can find me at XenozFan2, that is XenozFan2 on Twitter and Reddit. And you can contact the channel directly at Diablo TODND on Twitter and YouTube. Thank you much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Have a good whatever.